Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hello, and thank you for watching.
For the past few weeks, Central Square has played host to public property as that we have a tragedy of the commons issue, saying happy holidays, Ken.
Voluntary interactions where individuals are free to act so long as they don't initiate force.
This morning, we gather to remember Sergeant Tom Ball.
We know our president has said
in his own book, Dreams from My Father, 1995, before entering politics, he admitted that he had used marijuana and maybe a little blow.
Look, when I was a kid, I inhaled frequently. That was the point.
You know, I made some bad decisions that I've actually written about. You know, there were times where I, got into drinking. Experimented with drugs, and, there was a whole stretch of time where I didn't really apply myself.
Maybe a little blow.
Maybe a little blow, which, as you know, is crazy talk. Maybe a little blow is what someone who uses marijuana every weekend says. If you used it once, you went, man, I used cocaine once, it was crazy.
Yeah.
But if you use it every week and you go, maybe a little blow. That's such an odd, casual way to say, yeah, maybe a little.
Now, he has not left this to states' rights. As you know, medical marijuana, as our good friend Joe Rogan will point out to you anytime.
In 10,000 years of known use of marijuana, there's never been a single death attributed to marijuana. There's 400,000 deaths in America alone every year that are directly attributed to tobacco.
Medical marijuana you can get in California. And the feds are coming in to try to stop this.
They're still arresting people,
States' rights don't mean jack shit to the Obama administration on anything except gay marriage. What troubles me about this is, it is not hypocrisy, because as everybody knows, hypocrisy doesn't bother me very much.
You like hypocrisy.
And so Obama...
And yet you feel this is
worse? I think it's beyond hypocrisy. I think it's something to do with class. And a lot of people have accused Obama of class warfare, but in the wrong direction. I believe this is Obama chortling with Jimmy Fallon about lower class people.
And Bobo says...
What does Bobo have to say?
I think that's the first time you've ever said...
I woke up wondering what Bobo was thinking.
That's the first time you ever said, what does Bobo have to say? Due to economic pressures, influence on voters could likely see a ... Ah, forget it. Are you going to legalize weed or what?
I figured that's what Bobo was going to ask.
That sounds like something he would be interested in, yeah.
We're not going to be legalizing weed or what anytime soon. But what we are trying to do is make sure that when it comes to drugs, that we're not just thinking about law enforcement, we're also thinking about treating it as a public health problem.
Do we believe, even for a second, anybody believe, that if Obama had been busted for marijuana under the laws that he condones, would his life have been better? If Obama had been caught with the marijuana that he says he uses and maybe a little blow, cocaine,
felony conviction,
this casual attitude toward drugs, a casual attitude toward drugs that makes him really cool on Jimmy Fallon, makes him the hip president. I'm the cool president, I'm the happiest president. I say weed, I say blow, it's all a big deal, ha ha ha, huge laugh from the college students. And if he had been busted under his laws, he would have done hard fucking time. And if he had done time in prison, time in federal prison, time for his weed and a little blow, he would not be president of the United States of America. And he would not have gone to his fancy-ass college. He would not have sold books that sold millions and millions of copies and made millions and millions of dollars. He would not have a beautiful, smart wife. He would not have a great job. He would have been in fucking prison, and it's not a goddamn joke. People who smoke marijuana must be set free. It is insane to lock people up. Now, people bust me all the time for carrying on about how I've never had a sip of alcohol, never had a puff of marijuana, never done any drugs in my life. They say, why do you always bring that up? Well, maybe in this case it's okay to bring it up, okay? I've never had a puff of marijuana. I've never had maybe a little blow. I've never even had a glass of wine. All right? None of that shit. But the people who do any of this stuff do not deserve to be in prison. Throw some numbers at me, Godot.
750,000 people in jail for victimless crimes, a great number of which are marijuana. 1 in 6 people in jail are there for marijuana.
Not 1 in 6 people of victimless crimes.
No, 1 in 6 are for marijuana.
1 in 6 people in prison. 1 in 6 people in prison. 1 in 6 people in prison are in there for weed that Jimmy Fallon and the President of the United States of America laugh about. Ha, ha, ha. And then does this addendum that maybe will help them with treatment. Treatment from the fucking government? You need treatment? You smoke dope? You're President of the United States. You did not need treatment. Let the people go. And we've put more people in jail than any civilized country ever has. The people who are in jail are predominantly African American. They're predominantly poor. But politicians who are busted for marijuana, who go to jail, you cannot be a politician. These laws would not allow us to have the President of the United States of America that we have now. It is not something that you laugh about. It is this goofy kind of thing. Can you imagine if your child were doing time in prison for marijuana?
That was Penn Sunday School.
Contrary to the rumors that you've heard, I was not born in a manger. I was actually born on Krypton and sent here to save the planet Earth. You will not see a dime of increased taxes. Not one dime. Not your payroll tax.
The best idea, I think, is to raise the cap on the payroll tax.
Not your income tax.
Your new tax plan is going to tax me more, isn't it?
Not your capital gains tax.
What I've said is that I would look at raising the capital gains tax for purposes of fairness.
I think when you spread the wealth around, it's good for everybody. I think when you spread the wealth around, it's good for everybody.
I'm in this race to tell the lobbyists in Washington that their days of setting the agenda are over. They have not funded my campaign. They will not work in my White House.
Just this weekend, the New York Times published a list of names, a rather long list of names of people who are working on Obama's transition team or who have accepted jobs in his White House, who are either former lobbyists or who have close ties to lobbyists. The Times reports that some of those people were lobbying as recently as this year.
Now, I had no doubt, and I said at the time, when I opposed the surge, that given how wonderfully our troops perform, if we place 30,000 more troops in there, then we would see an improvement in the security situation and we would see a reduction in the violence. We can send 15,000 more troops, 20,000 more troops, 30,000 more troops. I don't know any expert on the region or any military officer that I've spoken to privately that believes that that is going to make a substantial difference on the situation. I had a uncle who was one of the who was part of the first American troops to go into Auschwitz.
First, Obama didn't have an uncle who served in the U.S. Army. Second, Russian forces liberated the Auschwitz concentration camp in Poland in January of 1945.
Those are not statements that I ever heard when I was sitting in the pews at this church. Did I ever hear him make remarks that could be considered controversial while I sat in the church? Yes.
you can walk out of a church. I mean, you can go up to a pastor and say, this is wrong.
And as I said, Anderson, if I had heard any of these statements, I probably would have walked out, and I probably would have told Reverend Wright that they were wrong. But they were not statements that I heard when I was in church.
So no one...
Did I ever hear him make remarks that could be considered controversial while I sat in the church? Yes.
If the government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a 3-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America, no, no, no. Not God Bless America, God Damn America. That's it.
I don't think that my church is actually particularly controversial.
Hi, Adam. I have been reading a fair amount about the Constitution and was wondering how it is supposed to be interpreted. It seems like the major opinions are originalist, meaning original meaning of the words, intent, what the founders intended it to mean, that it is supported by their outside writings and orations, and loose construction, broad and flexible interpretation. At this point in my understanding, I am in the originalist camp. How do you interpret the Constitution? And how did you arrive at that conclusion? I have been listening to your podcast. I'm on number 7 and watched a good amount of your YouTube videos over the past months. I can't remember exactly, but I think some part of your work is what exposed me originally to libertarian views, and I've been devouring the ideals and books ever since. So thank you. Well, you're very welcome, and I'm always encouraged by feedback of people who can point to the origin of their spark of free thought that led them down the libertarian path, or rabbit hole perhaps, to something that I produced. I'm very encouraged by this and honored, and my response on the forums was simple. It should be interpreted as a means of establishing a power structure to allow those dominant members of society to maintain their dominance. It should be condemned as an anti-freedom document, both in its origin and in its historical effect. So how should the Constitution be interpreted? Yes, the Constitution should be interpreted as an anti-freedom document. Before the Constitution, remember, the country was founded not with the Constitution, which was not ratified until years after the Declaration of Independence, July 4, 1776, under which we had the Articles of Confederation afterwards, where we had more freedom. We had a loosely affiliated defense collective of the then new states, no longer colonies as of the signing of the Declaration. And when the Constitution was instituted years later, it was a step backwards for freedom. The states became less autonomous. So in that sense, specifically, as an historical event, the institution of the Constitution as the governing document of the United States of America was a step backwards for freedom. The second way of looking at this, of interpreting the Constitution, is as that which has given birth to the Leviathan that we see today. Is it not a constitutional government with the 3 separate branches of power keeping each other in check and accountable to the people that lords over us today? So whether you interpret the Constitution literally in an originalist sense, or by the intent of the founders, it really doesn't matter, because if you care about freedom, if you love America, it's time to get past the Constitution, to see past it to the ideals that are at least allegedly behind it, the ideals of freedom, the ideals clearly spelled out in the Declaration of Independence, that all men, although we must say now women, and understand that at the time men did not include men of a different skin color, all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The ideals of those Enlightenment principles of individual liberty, of the libertarian principles that we embody now in the philosophy of non-aggression, of self-ownership, if anything, dictate that we see the Constitution as an anti-freedom document, which needs to be abolished as soon as possible.
يشوف حالتنا، يشوف أولادنا كيف مرتمين في الصوف، قاعدين على البلاط، لا في فراش ولا أكل ولا مي ولا كهرباء. هذه حياة، هذا حصار، هذا أكبر حصار، هذا أعظم حصار لإسرائيل. بقول يعني يشوفنا كيف عايشين هنا مرميين، لا بنروح بنلعب ولا بنضحك ولا بنتعلم ولا بنحضر برامج أطفال. بفتح التلفزيون بلاقي كله تشييع جنازات وطخ وموت وحرب دبابات واجتياح. بلاقيش برامج أطفال أتسلى أتعلم منهم، بلاقيش رسوم متحركة ألعب أتفرج علينا أتسلى. كل تشييع جنازات ولا عاملين شيء بطخه. إحنا هنا لا في أكل ولا مي ولا شرب ولا إشي. إحنا هنا مرميين زي الشحابين مرميين. شوفوا الشعب الثاني كيف قاعد وبيلعب وبيضحك وبيفرح. إحنا علينا حصار تقريبا سنتين الحصار علينا، ولا بناكل ولا بنشرب ولا إشي بيسوونا ولا بيفتحوا المعابر حتى يعبرنا أكل أو أشياء.
Hello, I'm Severin Suzuki speaking for ECHO, the Environmental Children's Organization. We're a group of 12 and 13-year-olds trying to make a difference. Vanessa Setti, Morgan Geisler, Michelle Quigg, and me. We've raised all the money to come here ourselves, to come 5,000 miles to tell you adults you must change your ways. Coming up here today, I have no hidden agenda. I am fighting for my future. Losing my future is not like losing an election or a few points on the stock market. I am here to speak for all generations to come. I am here to speak on behalf of the starving children around the world whose cries go unheard. I am here to speak for the countless animals dying across this planet because they have nowhere left to go. I am afraid to go out in the sun now because of the holes in our ozone. I am afraid to breathe the air because I don't know what chemicals are in it. I used to go fishing in Vancouver, my home, with my dad, until just a few years ago we found the fish full of cancers. And now we hear of animals and plants going extinct, every day vanishing forever. In my life, I have dreamt of seeing the great herds of wild animals, jungles and rainforests full of birds and butterflies. But now I wonder if they will even exist for my children to see. Did you have to worry of these things when you were my age? All this is happening before our eyes, and yet we act as if we have all the time we want and all the solutions. I'm only a child, and I don't have all the solutions. But I want you to realize, neither do you. You don't know how to fix the holes in our ozone layer. You don't know how to bring the salmon back up in a dead stream. You don't know how to bring back an animal now extinct. And you can't bring back the forest that once grew where there is now a desert. If you don't know how to fix it, please stop breaking it. Here, you may be delegates of your governments, business people, organizers, reporters, or politicians, but really, your mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, aunts and uncles, and all of you are someone's child. I'm only a child, yet I know we are all part of a family, 5 billion strong, in fact 30 million species strong, and borders and governments will never change that. I'm only a child, yet I know we are all in this together and should act as one single world towards one single goal. In my anger, I am not blind, and in my fear, I am not afraid of telling the world how I feel. In my country, we make so much waste. We buy and throw away, buy and throw away, buy and throw away, and yet northern countries will not share with the needy. Even when we have more than enough, we are afraid to share. We are afraid to let go of some of our wealth. In Canada, we live the privileged life, with plenty of food, water, and shelter. We have watches, bicycles, computers, and television sets. The list could go on for 2 days. 2 days ago here in Brazil, we were shocked when we spent time with some children living on the streets. This is what one child told us. I wish I was rich. And if I were, I would give all the street children food, clothes, medicines, shelter, and love and affection. If a child on the streets who has nothing is willing to share, why are we who have everything still so greedy? I can't stop thinking that these are children my own age, that it makes a tremendous difference where you are born. That I could be one of those children living in the favelas of Rio. I could be a child starving in Somalia, or a victim of war in the Middle East, or a beggar in India. I am only a child, yet I know if all the money spent on war was spent on finding environmental answers, ending poverty, and finding treaties, what a wonderful place this earth would be. At school, even in kindergarten, you teach us how to behave in the world. You teach us to not to fight with others, to work things out, to respect others, to clean up our mess, not to hurt other creatures, to share, not be greedy. Then why do you go out and do the things you tell us not to do? Do not forget why you are attending these conferences, who you're doing this for. We are your own children. You are deciding what kind of a world we are growing up in. Parents should be able to comfort their children by saying, everything's going to be all right. It's not the end of the world, and we're doing the best we can. But I don't think you can say that to us anymore. Are we even on your list of priorities? My dad always says, you are what you do, not what you say. Well, what you do makes me cry at night. You grown-ups say you love us, but I challenge you, please, make your actions reflect your words. Thank you.
The Americans seem to think that the party's going to last forever and the holiday goes on, and they don't really see the error of certain things. I mean, Thomas Rainsford Lounsbury was an educator in the 19th century, and he said, "It never ceases to surprise me at the infinite capacity of the human mind to resist the introduction of useful knowledge." And that's what it is. People know better. People sense better. But they go against it. They just think there are no consequences. It kills me that it's a steady downhill slide. You know, this country is really finished. I mean, it really is technically finished. It's just a matter of playing out the end game. Well, it's true. It's true. You can see it. You can smell it. Anyone who can't see it or smell it doesn't understand. Yeah. There's a medical term that they use in hospitals when a person has no future left on this planet. They can't be helped anymore. And they put it on the chart, CTD, circling the drain. And that's what we're doing. We're slowly circling the drain, and the circles get smaller, and they get faster. I enjoy it. Personally, I don't have a stake in the outcome. I personally enjoy this circus that I've been invited to. I've often said, when you're born in the world, you're given a ticket to the freak show. When you're born in America, you're given a front row seat, and I couldn't enjoy it more.
I'm talking about the fact that a war is old men protecting their property by sending young men, or rich old men protecting their property by sending middle class and lower class young men off to die. It always has been. It's all about owning things. You know, all of this back and forth and debate implies that there are really choices in this country, that we really have choices, freedom of choice. It's an illusion. Army. Americans are made, and they're having trouble filling the slots in this all-volunteer army. I wonder why.
Raise the pay of the military.
Let me say one thing about choice. There is no real choice. They say freedom of choice. You're given an illusion of choice. Americans are meant to feel free by the exercise of meaningless choices. You don't have, you know what the choices are in this country? Paper or plastic, a pile or window, smoking or non-smoking. Those are your real choices. You began a sentence a little while ago. It's not a surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise. It shouldn't be a surprise that rich white men don't care about poor black people, period. So they're not high on their list. They're not high on their list.
George,
they're not high.
George,
they're not.
that's
I don't care if you love me or not. They're not high on the conscious or the subconscious list of those people who are in charge of things in this country. The owners, forget these foolish elections. The owners of this country don't care about the poor in general.
The owners of this country. What are we going? What, is this Karl Marx talking to me? The owners of this country are the voters of this country.
You're wrong about that, my friend.
Aren't the owners of this country the voters in this country who elected George Bush?
Not. Listen, politics, these elections are a charade. It is a charade. It is, they are meant to, well, I'll tell you, just listen for a minute. Learn a little something. The elections and politicians are in place in order to give Americans the illusion that they have freedom of choice. You don't really have choice in this country. I have an addendum to that. The real looting in this country takes place in the transfer of the wealth from the poor to the rich. I'm sorry that you don't like class and the truth, my friend, but you're just stuck with it. Class is right, and the poor have been systematically looted in this country. The rich have been made richer under this criminal, fascist president and his government.
George, I think do you know what fascism is? You know what fascism is? You know what Nazis are?
Sir, wait, sir. When fascism comes to America, it will not be in brown and black shirts. It will not be with jack boots. It will be Nike sneakers and smiley shirts. Smiley. The fascism. Germany lost the Second World War. Fascism won it. Believe
and actually,
me, my friend.
George, you think that looting is looting okay if there's no hurricane?
First of all, property.
Break into tweeters whenever you want.
We're talking about. I have no problem with theft. May I be honest?
No problem.
I have no problem with theft. It's true.
Well, George is defending looting, but
I have no stake in it. I have no stake in the outcome.
I think
you have to give them credit for one thing. You have to give them credit. They're out in the open now. They're out in the open now. They're not even trying to conceal it anymore. The owners of the country they got their election. They said, we're going to get this election. We put you people in that court for a reason.
Right.
Now's
back
the time
to earth for you now.
Yeah, forget all that stupid. Will you? They're out in the open. They're openly driving the bus, and we're all in the back.
Because of the energy policies that were created here in California, not as a result of a conspiracy, but because...
You don't need a formal conspiracy.
Right.
When interests converge, these people went to the same universities and fraternities. They're on the same boards of directors. They're in the same country clubs. They have like interests. They don't need to call a meeting. They know what's good for them, and they're getting it. And there used to be 7 oil companies. There are now 3. It will soon be 2. The things that matter in this country have been reduced in choice. There are 2 political parties. There are a handful of insurance companies. There are about 6 or 7 information things. But if you want a bagel, there are 23 flavors because you have the illusion. You have the illusion of choice.
Right.
You don't get the real important choice. There's no freedom of choice.
That's a great point.